Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Sandy Bottom Homestead. I hope you're having an absolutely fantastic day. And we need to talk about something today, something that's kind of swirled around my mind a little bit, and that is self-reliance. Can we be self-sustainable and self-reliant in our gardens? And really, should we? We look around the garden, and I mean, clearly you can see that our goal to some extent is to be self-sustainable. We've got 11 garden beds, we've got bees, and back there, we've got chickens. I mean, yeah, we want to be as reliant as possible, sustainable, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. And it's one of those things where as we go around and we look at what we're growing and how we're managing it, you know, the goal is always to be that, because there's the big question about the garden and all of this stuff really is the juice worth the squeeze? You know, monetarily, is it worth it to go through all of this effort and do all of this just to get some produce? And that's something that I really have caught myself questioning a lot. And it just depends how much you want to put into it. I mean, let's look at this potato bed real quick. This is a crop actually between this one and the corn, or not the corn, the onions over there. These are the ones that I hesitated the most to grow. I mean, in this bed alone, if we're lucky, we'll get maybe 30 pounds of white potatoes out of it. And we have another bed over there. Hopefully we'd get about, I'm hoping 10 to 15 pounds. But if you just focus on this one bed, if you get the 30 pounds of potatoes out of it, the cost wise of it is probably 15 to 20 bucks worth of produce. And you have to factor in, well, we bought the potatoes to put in there, so I believe they were like $8. We use fertilizer to feed it, and we've got mulch and dirt and water. And really all of that added up, if I had to put an educated guess on it, I'd say it's probably about, to grow those potatoes is going to be about $11. But then we have to factor in all of our efforts that we put into it, because I mean, let's face it, man, time is money, right? Time is absolutely money. And the time that it takes us to get the garden beds ready, manage it, take care of it, harvest it, cure it, store it, all that stuff, it does add up. And so the thing is basically, I would imagine, like, especially for potatoes, this isn't for every crop. This is definitely not for every crop. There are a lot of what I call cash crops in our garden, but this one in particular is one that's not really going to set us up and over the edge, but the self-reliance part comes in. And so the one thing I know, and again, you have to understand, this is how I do my garden, why I do gardening and homesteading, is because when it all comes down to it, I'm gonna have some taters. You know, I had a neighbor across the street, he's since moved, but I remember when the COVID happened, and there was, you know, very limited access to grocery stores at first, stuff like that. And there was a real concern that food was an issue. And I remember he came up to me and he said, "I don't have to worry about it, you have a garden." No, I don't have a garden for you when it comes down to that, I'm sorry. This is my work. I don't do all of this just so I can give it to you. Now, on a normal year, sure, there's some crops that I would give you some of, but in a situation like that, you know what, you're not really gonna get a lot of my produce, and I'm sorry, but that's why I put all of this effort into us, building beds, adding dirt, moving dirt in the middle of winter, fertilizing, shoveling chicken crap all the time, putting it in, all that stuff. It's just kind of this uphill battle. And I ended up talking to a guy that runs a farm, and we were talking about this, and he was talking about being self-reliant. This gentleman ran a farm, an actual farm, right? And so, for instance, like, these are my cucumber plants right here. And I asked him, I was like, well, what are you up to? And he said he's planting 750 cucumber plants. So that puts it into perspective what he was doing. But in this conversation, we started talking about being self-sufficient and stuff like that. And You know, it's a lot of people's goals, and especially in the homesteader community. But let's look at what we've got going on here and think to ourselves, is it really plausible, or is it really worth it? And what are some other options for that? So for instance, we have our gardens, we know that, and then we'll come out here, and I don't really talk about my chickens a lot, just because, I don't know, there's not really a lot to talk about. You just kind of feed them, collect eggs and all that. So these are laying hens, so we get eggs from them, and well, they like laying them in this corner first of all, but we've got, she's laying on an egg right now. We've probably got, as of this time, it's 10 o'clock in the morning, we've probably got 5 or 6 eggs. You know, this time of year, we get about 8, 9 eggs a day. On a bad day, we might get 6. And then we obviously get our produce. Now we have beehives, and we're looking to harvest a fair amount of honey this year, but I mean, really, on a self-sufficiency standpoint, we don't really need a whole lot of honey to get through the year. It's not like we're gonna die if we don't have sugar. Let's be honest on what it is. I know it is considered a medicine for some people, but generally speaking, so, you know, we have that, but then you factor in like meat consumption, and if you don't eat meat and you're vegan, which, you know, for a long time we were, you know, we have to factor in our protein consumptions and stuff like that. And so you get into this vicious cycle. And it's like, if you look at what we have here, we've got these 11 beds, and we've got this space out here. And, you know, there's a part of this that we want to keep this space available to us to use for enjoyment. And we're willing, and I've made a video about this before, about don't worry about what I think is going to happen in the world until you see all of this filling up with garden beds. And then you should start to worry, because that means that we think something is going to happen. But then you start thinking, factoring like meat consumption, and you put all that in, and then in today's world, as of right now, where we stand, where there is still full access to every single thing, meaning internet, movie theaters, malls, jobs, all that stuff. There's, you know, you may not have the job you want, but you could go to McDonald's and flip burgers. You know, there's access to these things, and there is an active monetary exchange system occurring where we are going to grocery stores. We have full access to grocery stores all the time. Can you be self-reliant in a time like that? Meaning, can you grow your produce, create your meat, get your sugar, whatever else, make money to bring in to support your house? Because you have to remember, we have to pay bills on our castle. We have to pay banks and stuff like that. Is it totally worth it? Might be a popular thought by you, but I don't think you can. And I don't think you should. I think there's a better option. You know, there's a reason why I don't have pigs. I don't have a cow. I don't have goats. You know, there's a lot of things that I don't have on my property that I don't want, because quite frankly, I don't want to manage the manure. I don't want the sounds. I don't want the feed bill that comes with raising all that stuff. You know, there's a reason, and I get this question a lot, is you have all this room, why don't you just expand your garden instead of planting so tightly and doing stuff like this? Well, first of all, I like to garden this way. This is my garden, this is my space, and this is how I like to do it. I don't want the added headache of adding more garden beds, which would bring in the financial cost of garden beds, soil, watering systems, more fertilizer, more time outside doing this stuff. It would get to be a lot. And there's a lot that we can do that we don't really need all of this, because we can set up a system amongst ourselves. So if you have a couple friends, I've got a friend down the road, he raises pigs. He'll slaughter a pig. I don't want to do that. I hunt, that's fine. I'll harvest my meat from the wild, but I don't really want to slaughter a pig that I raise. And we will trade. So what he wants from here, we'll trade from there. You know what I mean? If he needs eggs, we give him eggs. He gives us a pork chop. You know, and that way we can spread it out, because that's what he's into. He's into that. I'm not. I'm into this. and this works for me. And that's the thing that I should really remember, is there's a way to be reliant, but I think we should really focus on like community reliance. You know, even back in the day, people weren't really self-reliant to that extreme. There was some bartering system in place. You get a bumper, well, onions aren't really a good example. You get a bumper tomato harvest, right? We get a bumper tomato harvest. Yeah, you're gonna put some back. You're going to go ahead and fill them up and can them and eat them and freeze them. But you know, invariably you're gonna get a lot. But instead, let's keep it on a vegetable standpoint. And let's say this is our bed of tomatoes, and then somebody else grows corn's on my mind, so let's use corn. I mean, how much corn can you really eat? So you start trading. Hey, you grow the corn, I'll grow the tomatoes. Maybe you suck at growing corn and you want somebody else to do it. And then you guys can trade back and forth. We can trade honey for stuff. You know, there's a thing about that it's not, I don't even want to really call it trading, but it really is. It is trading, but it's supporting each other. And I think it's something that we really need to kind of think about. If this is something and you're taking it to this level, I know I talk a lot on here about like, do this in your garden, don't do that. But there's also concepts to all of this that I think really need to be discussed and thought about. Because what that does is that helps shape you as a gardener and helps shape how much effort you put into it and your focus. And then you can kind of laser focus in key areas and let somebody else down the road laser focus in something else, and y'all can work together. Now, y'all might appreciate this. My wife was asking me, she's like, why are your fingernails so long and dirty? Total side note. And I said, well, my fingernails are dirty because I can't stop digging in the dirt. It's just part of it this time of year. But my fingernails are long so I can scratch all the bug bites that I get. Tell me I ain't right. Tell me it's not dual purpose. But seriously, just think about that as you go forward. You know, I'm a jack of all trades and a master of none. And I think that's good, but I've also taken my trades and I've narrowed them down. So I'm not just a jack of all trades. I'm a jack of most trades, and I'm good at some, but master of none. And I think that's where I want to sit with all of this. I don't want to be totally perfect. I don't want to be the expert in X, Y, and Z. I just want to be really good at some things, pretty good at others, and understand where I have my weaknesses and pass those on to somebody else to help. Maybe we can prop each other up and be a community amongst ourselves. Just like on this channel in the comments, I might not know something, but there are people that regularly step in and say, this is what I'm doing, and people find it useful. Or we have the Backyard Gardens podcast where we do that. We also have a Facebook group page for the podcast called Backyard Gardens Community Garden, where people will help each other out. And it allows us to all help each other out in this game of fertilizing and growing and harvesting and preserving food and all of that. And I've gotten a lot of questions about people asking me if I'm going to do videos about preserving. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to use those opportunities to go live, where I will be preserving, actively preserving at the time, and then ask questions and kind of talk about it as I go through. I think that's the best way for me to do it, and how I will find more enjoyment doing it. So those will be coming when we start preserving. But you know, all of this stuff together is really what helps, and using our references around us to get better at those different trades that we do.